The 11th of December 1941, Nazi Germany officially declares war on the United States. Adolf Hitler takes this dangerous step, accusing America of provoking conflict by supporting Britain and engaging in naval skirmishes. Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop personally delivers the chilling message to U.S. diplomats. This declaration shatters any remaining American neutrality and thrusts the United States into the global conflict of World War II. But the Nazi threat doesn't stop with words. Germany plans to bring destruction directly to American soil, targeting factories, railroads, and public spaces through acts of sabotage. One of the agents chosen for this mission is a man once welcomed by America, a man who betrayed the very country that gave him citizenship, Herbert Hans Haupt. Herbert Hans Haupt was born on December 21, 1919, in Stettin, a bustling Baltic port that is now Szczecin, Poland, but was then part of the German Empire. His father, Hans Max Haupt, a veteran of World War I, struggled in post-war Germany, where jobs were scarce. In 1923, he sailed to America in search of work, promising to send for his wife Erna and their son once he was settled. 2 years later, in 1925, the Haupt family reunited in Chicago, a city teeming with opportunity and thriving German immigrant communities. In 1930, they were granted U.S. citizenship. 10-year-old Herbert took the oath under the American flag and quickly adapted fluent in English thanks to school and local friendships. Herbert attended Lane Tech High School, learning mechanical drawing and optical work. After graduation, he apprenticed at Simpson Optical Company, where he polished lenses and gained a reputation as a polite and diligent worker. Yet beneath this American life, another influence stirred. On weekends, Herbert joined the Junior League of the German-American Bund, an organization that marched under both American and Nazi flags. He was drawn to the uniforms, the patriotic songs, and the ideals of Nazi Germany. At one event, his open admiration for Hitler earned him a slap from a fellow member, Lawrence J. Jordan. But Herbert remained firm in his beliefs. He even claimed that Germany was superior to the U.S. when World War II broke out in 1939. Herbert's private life began to unravel. In 1941, his girlfriend became pregnant. Fearing responsibility and judgment, Herbert fled to Mexico with two friends, Wolfgang Wergen and Hugo Troskin. Troskin was turned back at the border, but Herbert and Wergen continued on. Since they were born in Germany, they were still recognized as German citizens. In Mexico City, the Nazi embassy issued them new German passports. From there, they traveled to Japan, where they briefly stayed at what was supposedly a monastery but turned out to be a labor camp. Escaping that, they signed onto a German merchant ship bound for occupied France. Herbert served as a lookout and helped the captain navigate past British naval blockades of Feet. That earned him the Iron Cross Second Class, catching the eye of the Abwehr, Nazi Germany's military intelligence agency. By December 1941, Herbert was living with his grandmother in Stettin when the news broke. Japan had bombed Pearl Harbor. Days later, Hitler declared war on the United States. Now stranded in enemy territory, Herbert attracted the attention of Admiral Wilhelm Canaris's Abwehr. They needed English-speaking agents familiar with American cities. Herbert fit the profile. He accepted the offer, later claiming he did so just to return home. At an estate near Berlin called Queensie, Herbert and other recruits underwent intensive training, handling explosives, forging documents, and crafting cover stories. They practiced American slang and immersed themselves in U.S. newspapers to maintain convincing accents and up-to-date cultural knowledge. By spring 1942, 8 agents were selected for Operation Pastorius, a plot to sabotage major American infrastructure, hydroelectric plants at Niagara Falls, key railroad curves in Pennsylvania, and aluminum factories in Tennessee and Illinois. They also planned to plant bombs on bridges, train stations, water plants, and Jewish-owned stores. The agents were issued fake IDs, U.S. money nearly $175,000, and were split into 2 teams to be delivered by German U-boats. On the night of June 12, 1942, U-200 surfaced off Long Island, New York. For men George John Dasch, Ernest Peter Berger, Richard Quirin, and Heinrich Heine came ashore in naval uniforms, buried their gear in the sand, and changed into civilian clothes. But shortly after landing, they were spotted by Coast Guardsman John Cullen. Dasch tried to bribe him, but Cullen reported the encounter. By the time authorities arrived, the Germans had disappeared, headed for Manhattan. 3 days later, U-584 dropped off the second team. Edward John Curling, Hermann Otto Neubauer, Werner Thiel, and Herbert Haupt on Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, dressed in swimwear and Navy caps. They quickly changed clothes and took trains to Chicago and Cincinnati. Herbert returned to Chicago to see his parents, visit his girlfriend, and begin his mission. The reunion was bittersweet. The baby had been lost to miscarriage. Herbert promised marriage and began openly bragging about working for the German government. He even asked his father to buy him a sports car, claiming he needed it for his official duties. These careless words would soon cost him everything. At the same time, George Dasch was rethinking the mission. Disturbed by the potential civilian deaths, Dasch contacted the FBI under a fake name, Franz Pastorius. Initially dismissed, he traveled to Washington, D.C., and walked into FBI headquarters with $84,000 as proof. He exposed the entire plot. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover kept Dasch's defection quiet, claiming instead that the FBI had cracked the case themselves. On June 27, 1942, Herbert Haupt, his parents, and several associates were arrested in Chicago. Within weeks, all 8 saboteurs were in custody. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, determined to send a message, bypassed civilian courts and set up a military tribunal. The Supreme Court upheld this decision. In July 1942, all 8 were tried for espionage, sabotage, and conspiracy. Though none had planted a bomb, all were found guilty. On August 1st, 6, including Haupt, were sentenced to death. Only Dasch and Berger, who had cooperated, were spared. On August 8, 1942, the 6 were led to the electric chair at the District of Columbia Jail. Herbert Haupt, just 22 years old, was the youngest. He wrote a final note to his father that never arrived. "Try not to take it too hard. I have brought nothing but grief to all of my friends and relatives who did nothing wrong. My last thoughts will be of Mother." Moments later, his life ended in the electric chair. His body was buried anonymously in a field. Herbert Haupt holds a grim distinction. He was the only American citizen executed during the war. For aiding the Axis powers, 16 others, including his parents, were charged with helping the saboteurs. Most were later released. The German-American Bund dissolved shortly after America entered the war, and the house where Herbert once wore his brown uniform was sold. His story began in the cold streets of Stettin and ended on a wooden chair wired with copper. Though he never planted a bomb or destroyed a bridge, history judged him by his intent, not just his actions. His search for identity and belonging ended in betrayal and left behind only court records, newspaper headlines, and a haunting question: how could a young man's loyalty twist so deeply into treason? Thanks for watching the Map of Memories channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss our next episode. We appreciate your support. See you next time.